Good day. My name is Onika Nonhlanhla Makwakwa, representing the Consumers International Regional Office for Africa. We are based in Pretoria, although this morning I am joining you from Nairobi. First, let me apologize for not being there in person for this monumental event as CCZ brings along consumer voices in helping to shape the future of consumer protection in Zimbabwe. It is indeed a very important development, both in the history of the country, in the history of CCZ, as well as for the entire consumer movement. Consumer rights, sadly, are not always guaranteed. However, they must be claimed. And in order to do so, we need an informed citizenry that is active, participating, and has a voice in the process. And therefore, it is really exciting to be part of this day where CCZ is bringing those voices of multi-stakeholders together in the process of helping to shape what will be the future consumer protection of Zimbabwe. Let me start by talking about the value and importance of consumer protection laws in general. I have an opportunity through working with consumer organizations throughout Africa of visiting several countries. And I hear from time to time regulators as well as industry talking about corporate social responsibility and therefore wanting to be exempted from full consumer protection guidelines, rules, or legislation. Let me just say that there needs to continue to be healthy conversation and tension between government, civil society, and industry. And that's largely because we all have different goals, objectives, and functions to play within this role of protecting consumers overall. Business has to make profit so that our countries can be viable and successful and economically sound. And therefore, that is their primary responsibility. Consumer protection is important. However, you need civil society and you need regulators to create that enabling environment for businesses to thrive while in a market where consumers are also protected. It is therefore extremely important for consumers to be educated. We have seen and traveled in countries where a consumer protection law exists, but there is not enough knowledge amongst the citizenry to be able to access the provisions within the law, as well as consumer redress, which more and more is becoming a greater challenge, especially in our region. I want to draw your attention to a study that came out a couple of years ago called the McKinsey study, which talks about Africa rising. And the essence of the study is really about Africa as a future market, the next big frontier in terms of economic development, in terms of marketing, and where marketers can find new consumers and where growth is expected. Let's be frank. All we have to do is look at the mobile industry and know that a lot of the other markets are fairly saturated and that Africa still has an opportunity for growth and expansion in that area. However, McKinsey's report is quite troubling in the sense that as businesses are relocating and moving themselves to look at Africa as the big frontier and financial opportunity for their goods, we must ask ourselves, does Africa and does our country, Zimbabwe in this case, have the right regulatory environment to ensure that as these goods are coming in, consumers are protected? Just like you, I'm sure you too want Africa to rise. But more so, what I do want is for Africans to be the pilots of that flight. And therefore, consumer protection becomes really important. So that yes, we get goods. We are not just getting goods, but we get quality goods that help to improve our communities, but also empower consumers in the marketplace so that their buying power is actually recognized in the process. So therefore, I wish you all the best today as you deliberate, and I look forward to seeing the outcomes of a comprehensive consumer protection law that seeks to protect consumers fully, to ensure that consumers are informed in the marketplace, but also is a new generation, a new age consumer protection law that takes into account consumers in the digital age, which is a challenge we have currently with the UN guidelines as they currently stand. Hence, they are going through a revision. And therefore, Zimbabwe is in a really great position and time to be able to be coming up with a Consumer Protection Act at a time when revisions are being made to the UN guidelines, but also when we really need some new thinking around what kind of protections our consumers need, especially given the dynamic role of consumers in the marketplace in this era. Thank you very much, and I look forward to interacting with you, to sharing with you. Rosemary, I've left the best for last. Congratulations for your leadership of CCZ. CCZ remains one of our shining consumer organizations in Africa. But most importantly also for looking beyond Zimbabwe's borders and understanding that in order for us to succeed in consumer protection, we have to have cross-border collaboration. Thank you once again, and all the best to you all.